This is a revision guide for the GQ magazine front cover July 2016 issue, which is a case study in section A of the exam of component 1, exploring the media. Focus areas are media language, representation and media contexts. Product context. Launched in 1931, GQ began its life as a quarterly publication called Gentleman's Quarterly, aimed specifically at fashion industry insiders. Its popularity with customers caused its rebranding in 1967 to GQ. A point to mention here, quarterly, when a magazine's called something quarterly, it means it's released every 3 months. So obviously every split a year, 12 months into 4, you get 3 months. So each was a quarter. So quarterly means released every 3 months. The magazine is produced by Condé Nast. Today GQ is a multi-platform brand. Each issue is published in print and on the iPad. It has its own acclaimed website, iPhone apps, and an annual event called GQ Men of the Year. GQ has an average circulation of around 115,000. and a readership of almost 400,000 through its various platforms. GQ's catchphrase is "the magazine for men with an IQ." The brand is built around more traditional ideas of masculinity. It includes coverage of executive concerns and targets a more serious-minded, conservative, older reader than some other men's lifestyle magazines such as Loaded and FHM. Part 1. Starting points. Media language. Social and cultural context. In 1994, Mark Simpson, an author and journalist, coined the word metrosexual in an article for the Independent newspaper after he attended Britain's first GQ Star exhibition. He is famously quoted as saying, "I had seen the future of masculinity, and it was moisturised." This term gained global popularity in the early 2000s, epitomised by men like David Beckham, when it became more socially acceptable for men to openly care about their looks, clothing and skincare regime. Men's magazines embraced this through their content and advertising. Arguably, the primary role of such magazines is to encourage spending amongst its readers. In 2014, Simpson then introduced the term spornosexuals, men who are extremely body focused, who spend all their time at the gym and make their bodies their best accessory. The selection of the GQ cover shot, with Johnson's bicep in the foreground and the rest of his image secondary to it, and the choice of cover lines surrounding it all support this concept, this idea. Consider how choice of elements of media language influences meaning. The overarching theme for this issue appears to surround ideas of masculinity. The strapline tells us it's a special issue dealing with mind, body and masculinity. There is an extreme close-up of Dwayne Johnson with his huge bicep in the foreground. The cover line to the right tells the reader to man up, how to be a man in 2016. If we consider the selection process that takes place when creating a magazine cover, there was clearly a conscious decision to associate ideas of masculinity with physical strength. Semiotic analysis. Now, just as a slight aside, semiotics is the study of signs, so how we decode like colours and images and their connotations and their deeper meanings. The red, black and white colour palette used for this particular cover helps to support the idea of power. Red is associated with strength, and the black is also a strong, bold statement. Johnson is looking directly at the audience, seemingly making eye contact. This is a common convention of magazines and helps to add the more personal approach of this format. The intensity of his stare and the lack of a smile could also suggest how seriously he expects to be taken, and maybe how seriously the readers should take themselves and their bodies. Johnson's experience as a professional wrestler earned him the ring name The Rock, which has connotations of strength and stability. This name is used prominently here, across his image, with his actual name appearing smaller and below it. Perhaps he is more famous as The Rock, or perhaps the magazine is suggesting that his persona and look are more important than the man beneath. Worth thinking about. Consider how media language creates and communicates meaning. The strap line on the right third of the cover, your ideal beach watch, the best for under £300, should be considered when thinking about the magazine's target audience. Modern print magazines survive predominantly because of their advertising revenue. They are adept at selling you things you didn't even know you wanted. A £300 watch specifically for the beach implies a certain level of wealth amongst the target audience. Further down the page there is another cover line advertising the Style Guide, a new section inside. In today's competitive society, which focuses heavily on aesthetics, how people look, and where having the right look is apparently very important, the reader then begins to think of this magazine as a casual how-to guide when it comes to being a man. Finally, at the very bottom of the page there is a more newsworthy topic mentioned: the extraordinary truth behind the Viola Beach tragedy. This is a reference to the band Viola Beach, who all died in a tragic car crash in Sweden. There is a lot of speculation around the crash, and this cover line suggests that GQ has the answers. By including some serious journalism as well as entertainment and fashion advice, the magazine is broadening its range of offerings for its audience members. Possible areas for further investigation are genre, codes and conventions of magazine covers, the layout, use of cover star, house style, mastheads, genre conventions of magazines, their ever-changing nature and hybridity. For example, men's lifestyle magazines could be specifically about fashion or health and fitness and still come under the umbrella term lifestyle. It might be helpful to compare two quite different types of men's lifestyle magazines such as FHM. Narrative. Cover lines on the front cover tease people to want to read certain stories within the magazine. And this links to Roland Barthes' Enigma codes, which basically gives an audience, no matter what media text it is, clues and mysteries in which they would want to solve it. Part 2. Starting points. Representation. Historical and political context. African Americans have had a long and complex history in the motion picture industry. At the start of the 20th century, many films depicted black characters to support dominant stereotypes of the time: incompetent, hypersexualized and/or criminals. It wasn't until the growing momentum of the civil rights movement that there was a push against this status quo, and evidently there is still a way to go. In 2015, April Rain, the Broadway black managing editor, created the hashtag #OscarsSoWhite to bring attention to the Academy's tendency to overlook performances and achievements by non-white professionals. By 2016, little had changed, and so many actors and actresses boycotted the 2016 Oscars, branding it racist and too white. Consider the representation of ethnicity and gender. Using a hugely successful black cover star, Dwayne Johnson is half Samoan and half African American, as their dominant image, GQ is presenting a role model for its readers. Someone to aspire to be like. Although Johnson's Hollywood success might be outside of most readers' possibilities, his work ethic and desire to want to better himself isn't. Johnson's success as a wrestler allowed him to cross over into more mainstream culture, most importantly an actor. Black actors have, historically, always been paid less than their white counterparts, and so for Johnson to be considered one of the most bankable Hollywood stars is an achievement, and his success is even greater than one first realises. The use of Johnson's iconic bicep with its Brahma ball tattoo reinforces the stereotype of men as having to be hyper-masculine, strong and muscular. Consider the social, cultural and political significance of particular representations. For modern men, there is a societal expectation that they have to have it all: health, wealth and strength, and the image of Johnson supports this as he epitomises all three. Also, just like their female counterparts, the very essence of men's lifestyle magazines is consumerism. And so the images and cover lines will always seek to support this, informing men of what they supposedly need. For instance, the essential wellness gadgets and also showing them things to covet, to want, to desire, such as your ideal beach watch. The cover line reads, "How Dwayne Johnson became Hollywood's most bankable star." The reader understands this to mean that he is a success in Hollywood. He brings in a lot of revenue for film companies. This is reinforcing the capitalist ideology that for a man to be thought of as successful, you must be wealthy and make a lot of money. Cover lines such as "How to Be a Man in 2016" suggest that the reader cannot possibly already know this and will need the magazine to help them show the way. This is similar to the female magazines that tell the readers how to be beautiful, get fit and dress well. The importance of body image and consumerism doesn't change just because of gender. Possible areas for further investigation are: we might want to consider the image as a commodity, something that's bought, something that's owned. Most of the images used in magazines are to sell and advertise both the magazine and its advertising products. Celebrity cover stars sell magazines as people often want a window into their lives. This could further be considered in relation to Blumler and Katz's uses and gratifications theory, which considers why people interact with media texts.